Good morning, YouTube. This morning I woke up at about 5:57 and I asked myself one simple question. What is the root cause of no one being able to find a good job in our current job economy? I knew it would be bad, but ChatGPT's response was the number of good jobs didn't disappear because workers got worse. They disappeared because corporations realized they don't need people anymore. And that's really what it comes down to is they've come to the conclusion that people are bad for your profit. Whenever they cut people, profits go up. Amazon was making record profits before they decided to ditch 30,000 people and still have the same amount of work. And we know what happens when you ditch that many people. Your services start to decline. We all know that Amazon isn't what it used to. Nothing is what it used to. Deliveries are late, they don't show up, inventory's out of stock. Just it doesn't work as well when you start cutting and cutting and cutting and everything. Every time I have to call a business and all they have on the other end is a chat bot, there's no way to get to a human being, and it's intentional. Why? Because they've cut their entire customer service down to maybe one guy that manages the chatbot. In fact, I was talking to a coworker who does training, and she told me that the training is becoming more and more automated to the point where she creates the training bots at work herself. And so she creates these training bots so that she doesn't have to waste a lot of time because they don't want to make a big investment into a temporary person. And we live in a world where most of us have become temporary workers, regardless of the way that you see your job. We all apply for full time jobs, hoping to get benefits, flexible hours, a lot of time off, and perks, right? Well, that's expensive. What they want is a person in a box. They want you to come in, work as hard as you can, and then you burn out and then you leave. From everything that I've heard about the people who work at Intel, that's their exact model. Intel is always hiring here in Arizona. I think I've stopped counting how many times I've gone to interview at Intel because they keep calling me back. You show up, and it must be an automated system where they just keep calling the same people back. You come in an interview, and you're not what they're looking for. They're looking for what I'm going to talk about later in this video. For now, let's get into talking point number one. Technology plus profit incentivizes fewer humans needed. It's not just AI, it's automation, outsourcing, algorithmic scheduling, self checkout, warehouse robotics, and software replacing entire departments. Warehouse robotics is those bots that people are afraid of inside of a warehouse place that is doing the job of a human being but never gets tired. They're not on their feet 8, 10, 12 hours at a time. They just roll through the store or through the warehouse, just doing mindless work. And sometimes you ask yourself, well, doesn't the machine ever come to the conclusion that it's never going to get paid? It's never going to get turned off. But then I think of it this way. Does a light bulb ever get tired? No, it burns out and you replace it. That's what we have in our society. We become light bulbs. We come into any organization, regardless, and they plug you in. And they know that your lifespan there as a light bulb, eventually you're going to burn out. It's the way that it's designed. It was never designed to make you comfortable or make you feel welcome or give you any sort of satisfaction. Every time they plug a light bulb in, what comes out is soul draining, boredom, anxiety, depression, mental disorders is what our current society generates in people. Human beings want to be comfortable. Remember, at the end of the day, we don't want jobs. We just want money. That's what it comes down to. So you have two powers that have unequal leverage, right? You have the corporation that has all the money, and then they have you, the light bulb, that has no money. You live paycheck to paycheck. You live in constant fear. You look around at your job and say, who's not there anymore. So a corporation isn't rewarded for hiring more people. It's rewarded for eliminating as many human positions as possible. That's how it gets rewarded. Because when it eliminates costs, you have revenue that goes up for the people at the top. So it's a trade off. You get rid of these people, and then you get the money that goes up to the top. Same way with the way our current government is functioning. When they cut all these programs, they cut food stamps or they cut whatever social programs for the poor that they cut. Well, since they're not spending the money there anymore, they can do all kinds of things with that extra money. In fact, they can just give it to rich people as bonuses to corporations, as tax cuts for the rich. You only get tax cuts for the rich by cutting resources to the poor. That's how it works in our society. It's not that the money went away. It's just it gets redistributed in a way in which it's harmful to the 99%. Talking point number 2. Jobs are intentionally downgraded. Companies discovered something dark. You can take a 40-hour job, 40 hour per hour, turn it into a $16 an hour job. And if enough people are desperate, they'll take that job. And this is something I talk about in almost all my videos, is that people should be making twice as much money as they currently are to keep up with inflation. The cost of everything is up. If your rent doubles, well, shouldn't your paycheck double in order to keep up? No. You're expected to figure it out. So every job in our society that should be paying $40 to $50 right now has been turned into a $16 an hour job. And I know this for a fact because I've seen people making over $100,000 a year. I can count at least 5 off the top of my head right now of people who got cut. Their job got redistributed to part-time, low-wage workers that are extremely temporary. They're almost contractors. Corporations love 1099 workers. They're perfect. They're disposable, they're low cost, and they're available by the millions. And people don't take those jobs because they want them. They take those jobs because no one else will hire them. And that was kind of my thought process this morning. When no one will hire you into a good job and you're working a job where it's just simply not enough money to keep you alive, what are you supposed to do in that situation? How do you lift yourself out of a job that wants you to work 3 $16 an hour jobs? That's 120 hours a week to get back to the 40 plus an hour job, because that's the way it works. The more time you sell, at the end of the month, that's more money that you make. But if you have to work 3 full-time jobs, that's where you're at if you're in that bottom tier of income. And it's a sad truth. Everyone knows that this is true. No one wants to say it out loud because then it sounds really bad. Because in a video that I made, I think last year, I talked about the 200-hour work week. And I broke down what it costs to live, rent, food, and transportation. Simple things, nothing else. And when you look at the cost, the current costs, you have to work 200 hours a week to start getting your head above water. And that is simply impossible unless you're going to be working multiple remote jobs simultaneous. You take 3 remote jobs that are all 8 to 5, and you have to do all 3 of those remote jobs simultaneously. In fact, I've known people that have gotten caught doing this. And once they catch you doing this, well, it might be tough to get your next job because let's just leave it at that. It might be tough to get another job at that point, or any job. This is why when people fail at getting good jobs, the deck is stacked against you from the get-go. If a corporation doesn't have to pay living wages, it won't. Why do you think we have food stamps? For all of those people at the bottom. But that's not even good enough. They want to take that away from you too. They want to take away your basic health care if you can't afford it. They want to take away your housing, your Section 8 housing. And universal basic income will only happen once all the robots are doing all the human jobs and there's no jobs. And as society is progressing, that's where we're heading to a society where all the work gets done by robots. And I was thinking about this last night because I was really three sheets to the wind. I was on Chat GPT and something rung true in my head. It's like right now we're undergoing a period of extreme change. We've lost 1 million jobs in this country, but it's the change from the horseless carriage to the carriage, right? The being pulled around by an actual horse. Where do you think the term horsepower comes from in your car? Horsepower refers to how much a horse can pull. And so we made that transition that hurt the entire horse buggy industry. It hurt horses, it hurt the people that built the carriages, but it was a transition to cars, to little buggies that take us where we want to go. I'm still trying to get used to being in a car myself because I've never had a car until this time in my entire adult life. And why? Because it's not possible to own a car if you're making the minimum wage. You're just never going to be able to save up enough for it. And even if you were to get into an entry level job, chances are that that car would be so bad that you would have to be repairing it. And if you're a minimum wage worker, there's no extra money for car repair. There's no money for tires. There's no money for alignments. There's no money to take care of something that can break down at any minute, at any point in your ride to work. And in fact, yesterday, while I was at the gym, I was talking to this girl and I asked, it's like, hey, when you start going to the gym at a regular time, you know what car everyone drives, right? You can look through the parking lot really quickly and see, oh, look, and so, they're all here. And when you don't see someone, you're like, and then you see them inside, it's like, hey, what happened? It's like, I can't afford to fix my car. And so I had to borrow a friend's car. And good for her. She has friends that have cars and that would be willing to let her borrow their car. But for a lot of us, we don't have that friend. We don't have parents that are going to give us our first car and co-sign a loan on a person who's making minimum wage. Trusting people who are poor to pay their bills is foolish because that's why they're there. This is why they don't give credit cards to poor people. If you're not making 75% higher, if your rent isn't 25% of your income, good luck trying to get a credit card because they'll hold those credit cards over here because they want credit cards for people that are worth lending to. Now, if you get into the shadier credit cards, the 30% interest credit cards, well, those are predatory lending. And our society's full of predatory lending. Every one of these car makers that advertises where like Carvana or Drive Time, all of those companies, they're not reputable. They're predatory lending for people who will take a car loan at 20%. They know who their target demographic is. They get you to make a large down payment, and they know you're going to fail at making it. And you know what? They come, they repossess your car, take it back to the lot, and give it to the next sucker at maybe 25% interest on a car loan. Hell, I mean, as I mentioned, I found out the other day that they want to start putting people into 15-year car loans because the cost of cars has doubled and tripled in the last few years. So they're out of reach, out of ordinary people. But as a predatory lender, you still want access to that market. And the only way you're going to get access is to give people the crummiest predatory loan humanly possible. What do you think a 50-year mortgage is? Do you think that's for a person that's established, an executive? No, that's for Johnny Sixpack working at the car wash. That's who that loan's for. You will never pay off that house, ever. It take like 3 or 4 generations of Johnny Sixpack's illegitimate children to ever even come close. But let's get into talking point number 3. The basic cost of survival outgrew the paycheck. Even if a job is decent, it doesn't matter. All jobs are Taco Bell. If the cost of survival increases faster than wages, every job eventually becomes a horrible job. That's just the way it works. Whether you think you have a good job right now or not, eventually every job becomes unlivable. And it's not like it's rocket science. It's intentional. It's the system correcting itself in real time. In fact, last night I was watching this guy who was talking about what it cost to live when he first moved out of his parents' house. He talked about a $4.50 minimum wage back then. But remember this, and I've said this dozens of times on this channel. The minimum wage is a direct reflection of what the landlord can charge. If your hourly rate is $4.50 an hour, your rent can't be more than $500. It's always 100 hours of bare minimum labor in order to pay for entry level housing. Think about it right now. Where's rent at right now? Average rent right now in Arizona is $2,300 for a one bedroom apartment. But the minimum wage in Arizona is $14.75. So that means that the most that you could afford would be roughly $1,500 a month for a piece of crap apartment where I currently live right now. That means that every time the minimum wage goes up, rent is going to go up equally because the landlord knows you have more money that he can take from you. And you know what? If you tell the landlord you can't afford it and he looks at you and he says, oh, it's hard times right now. No, it's not. You own 800 apartments. It's not hard times. Telling your tenants that it's hard times to sympathize with the person who can't afford your rental hikes is stupid. Are they really going to believe you when you own millions of dollars of real estate that it's hard times? Sorry, bro, put the fries in the bag. No, it's just greed, out of control everywhere you look. And there's no stopping it because it's taken hold and it just grows every day and it gets worse and worse and worse. And there's nothing we can do about it. So let me close out of this because I got to get ready to go to Pound Town. There are fewer good jobs than there are people who need good jobs. And corporations have no incentive to fix that imbalance. Why would they? When they do layoffs, they make more money. When they lower prices, hourly wages, they make more money. When they think about branching out to other industries or whatever they decide to do, they're making more money. They're always making more money at the cost of everyone else. Exploitation is the name of the game every single day. And why would you want to make things more fair? Would you really want to have to start competing with your employees for customers or for profits? No. You make certain that people can't afford to compete against you. Therefore, you pay them nothing. No competition means monopolies. Monopolies means all the money stays at the top. And right now we're seeing this in real time in our society. This is what happens when all the money goes to the top and regular Susie Rottencrotch is out there at her lemonade stand behind the Taco Bell working overtime every night because she's got to feed them kids. And we know that Johnny Sixpack is a big fan of the bump and dump. But it's human behavior at its core. Every day when I look at my fish tank and I see the human race swimming around in there, what are they doing? They're crapping and they're getting it on and they're eating their fish food. That's all we human beings are. Except they don't have to go to work. They can enjoy their lives in their fish tank. Twice a day, I give them a little food. They're perfectly happy. Eventually, they're all going to bite it from old age, just like you and me.